explain. Let's start reading.
Yes. And yet there is not only in him or before him this eternal self-aware existence, this spiritual consciousness, this infinity of self-illumined force, this timeless and endless beatitude. There is too, constant also to his experience, this universe in measurable space and time, some kind perhaps of boundless finite, and in it all is transient, limited, fragmentary, plural, ignorant, exposed to disharmony and suffering, seeking vaguely for some unrealized yet inherent harmony of oneness, unconscious or half conscious, or even when most conscious, still tied to the original ignorance and inconscience. He is not always in a trance of peace or bliss, and yet, even if he were, it would be no solution, for he knows that this would still be going on outside him, and yet within him, some larger self of him, as if forever. At times, these two states of his spirit seem to exist for him alternately according to his state of consciousness. At others, they are there as two parts of his being, disparate and to be reconciled, two halves, an upper and a lower, or an inner and an outer half of his existence. He finds soon that this separation in his consciousness has an immense liberative power, for by it he is no longer bound to the ignorant, the inconscient. It no longer appears to him the very nature of himself and things, but an illusion which can be overcome, or at least a temporary wrong self experience. Maya. It is tempting to regard it as only a contradiction of the divine, as comprehensible mystery play, mass or diversity or the infinite. And so it irresistibly seems to his experience at times. On one side, the luminous verity of Brahman, and on the other, a dark illusion of Maya. But something in him will not allow him to cut existence thus permanently in two, and looking more closely, he discovers that in his half light or darkness too is the eternal. It is the Brahman who is here with his face, this face of Maya.
Okay, very interesting paragraph, and to be able to get the sense of continuity, I will first of all read out to you what he is saying in the previous one, so we get the continuity. He is actually discussing the Brahman consciousness. The Brahman consciousness is the self, or the Atman, or Nirvana, all the same. When you are released from your imprisonment of body, mind, life, and go, your consciousness rises to the lowest planes of even the lowest, or even you can go higher also, of the spiritual planes of consciousness, which I like to say level 2, then this is the experience that is described. Okay, but you cannot remain there permanently the first time. The first time you have the experience, it can last for a few seconds, it can last for a few minutes, it can last for 2 hours, it can last for 6 months. But then the gravitational force, your imperfection of the physical world will pull you down again into your own body. And this Srila is giving all the different cases. So we'll look at that very carefully. It's very interesting what he's saying. Okay, so page 120. 1 second. I have lost the page. Okay, I've got it. Okay, so 120. So I'll read out to you what he's saying first in the previous para, so that we get the continuity. All right. Now, so Srimad is describing what happens when he goes there, the sadhaka of the integral yoga. Now, he's saying that the sadhaka of in the previous para, okay, The sadhaka of the integral yoga sees both the extreme poles. Normally, everybody else also, they see both the extreme poles. On one side, your consciousness is absolutely free, vast, infinite, eternal, and you know that you are immortal. But on the other side, you see below you, your body-mind life is limited, time-bound, and full of activity and imperfection, and you are in the timeless, spaceless, and also you are in absolute peace and calm and static, no movement at all. You are in a static condition, permanent static condition, permanent, I mean, temporarily permanent. You are there stationed in that consciousness. As we said, it can be for 2 hours, it can be for 6 months. I've heard of a person who had it for 2 hours, and I have heard of a very good friend of mine, he had it for 6 months. Okay? So then you come down again. And then, so when you come down, you remember the experience, but you are not in that consciousness anymore. You only remember it. It's a shadow in the mind, but you are back to all your old habits will come back, and you will see that your body mind life is acting as it used to act before. Desires will be coming, wrong decisions will be coming, you will be looking at yourself, all these things will happen. But then repeated experience, you can station yourself permanently in the Atman or the Brahman consciousness or the Nirvana, whatever you want to call it, self. Okay? So now Sandra is describing that. I'll start reading each sentence and then we will see what is saying. And yet there is not only him or before him this eternal self-aware existence, this spiritual consciousness, this infinity of self-illumined force, is timeless and endless beatitude. Let's look at each thing very carefully, what he's saying. And yet there is not only in him. This is the, when you realize that the presence is there within yourself. Psychologically, you feel that it is within yourself. Or before him. Before means outside you, in the universe. So he is talking of the individual in him, and he is also talking of the cosmic outside him, before him. Before him is obviously not in him. So it is in the cosmos. So both the cases are possible. Since Ramdo's text is, he includes so many different things. The others don't go into such detail. Okay? Even the Upanishads don't go into such details. And yet there is not only in him or before him this eternal, and what is there in him? The eternal self-aware existence. It's a substance which is aware of itself. This spiritual consciousness, you can also call it presence of the divine. Okay? The spiritual consciousness, this infinity of self-illumined force. You may see it as consciousness, you may see it as substance, or you may see it as a force. And this force adjective used is self-illumined. In other words, when I want to see something outside in the physical world, I have to throw a light on it. If I'm in a dark room, I can't see anything unless I throw a light on it. The light is coming and illuminating something outside myself. But this is self-illumined. In other words, the force itself is the light. So it doesn't need any light to be thrown on it. It reveals itself. Self-illumined. Okay. So interesting word. I have to understand exactly what it is. It's very interesting. The force itself is light.
Rangada, this relates to nirvana? Experience of nirvana?
Yes. This is what you see. Okay. And you can see it in yourself or you can see. That's right. It's the nirvana experience that he is describing. The separation of Purusha and Prakriti. The consciousness and the force. Okay. So you can see it in this.
Excuse me.
Yes, tell me.
Excuse me. You said your friend had it for 6 months. So
yes.
What was he doing for 6 months? He did not eat, drink, do anything?
There was a tendency in him not to do much work because you are in a condition of peace and calm and the physical world becomes unreal, and he was not taking any interest at all in his work. Okay.
But then he was moving around and doing everything?
Absolutely, but I had to drag him to the press. Okay, because he was unwilling to go even to the press. So I had to drag him. I said, come on, it's time, we have to go, get up. So there is
Rangada, how do you differentiate between this experience and going into, tamasic condition.
The tamasic condition is darkness, whereas this condition is of light.
Light, okay. That is the difference. Yes.
You are in a awakened consciousness. Shilpa, it's a difference between sleep and wakefulness.
Okay.
Tamasic condition is sleep. They are unconscious. But this is a consciousness where you are absolutely awakened. But you are static. It's an interesting question, but you are not interested much in doing any work. Your consciousness is stationed in a light, power, force system. They are using all these words. Okay? But unwillingness to work. Why? Because the physical world is unreal. It has no value. Okay.
So, Rangada, when Buddha attained nirvana and he came back, was he in that condition still when he was, teaching and trying to help out people? He was in that nirvana condition, or he had come back to the normal life?
No. In the beginning, he may have come back to the normal life, but finally, he was definitely stationed in that higher consciousness. But Sri Aurobindo is very clear about it. He says that no, he was working in the physical world and spreading. Okay, he was teaching. So therefore, he was definitely positioned in that higher consciousness, but he was also working in the physical world. He did not misinterpret the nirvana experience. That's why he refused to speak about it. Sri Aurobindo says very clearly that Buddha was one of those who was working tremendous energy in the physical world. Yeah? So in Life Divine, he says that very clearly. So Pallavi's question, whether he was, in the beginning, it's very likely that it was up and down. Okay? Because that's what happened to Sri Aurobindo also. He says in his letters, he says also elsewhere also, that in the beginning when I had the experience in Baroda of the silent mind, then when I came back into my body, I had to try and bring that consciousness of static peace and calm into my body. And that took time, he says. It took good deal of effort, he says. Again and again and again I tried. Finally it got settled, even in the lower. Okay. So
that effort is like purifying yourself, or getting rid of your what do you say, your negative things, or how do you settle it in your physical world?
you have to keep trying for that. Now you have to go on aspiring. Mother says something interesting. She says whenever you want something, you have to aspire for it. The aspiration itself, the effort for aspiration constantly purifies you. So it's not that you purify yourself first and then it comes. It's a catch-22 situation. The more you aspire, the more you will be purified, and the more you are purified, the more that action can work in you. No? It is like that. Just think of a glass of dirty water, and you pour a little bit of pure water into it. It becomes slightly better. You go on pouring the pure water, the dirty glass becomes clearer and clearer.
Okay.
So that's why it is like that. So it is something, but effort is the main thing. You have to not make it effort. Ultimately, when there is no more effort. You have achieved what you have to do. So,
May I say something?
Go ahead.
In Mother India, there's a very good article about Sri Aurobindo's preparation at Baroda.
Okay.
And there, Sri Aurobindo himself writes that
Yeah.
in 1920, his sister Sarojini came to meet him in Pondicherry.
Okay.
So in 1920, he was very chatty with her, and she sat and he would sit and talk with her even while she was eating. Him in 1922. And that time, he never spoke to her, he would just smile at her. So you can see the evolution of his consciousness and how his whole behavior with people also changed.
Okay. But what is this 1920 and 1922? You are giving dates. What are those dates? When Mother came first time, it was 1914.
No, I'm not talking of Mother.
Then?
I'm talking of Sri Aurobindo's
Sarojini.
sister, Sarojini.
Oh, acha, right.
So first time he was very chatty, And after 2 years, he didn't talk to her. He just smiled, a very benevolent smile. But he
Ah,
didn't chat with her the way he did 2 years earlier.
okay, okay.
So even a person like him,
Hmm.
and another very interesting thing was that when he was just thrown into the solitary cell
Yeah.
and he questions the divine,
Yes.
and then somehow he had that inner peace and bliss and all, and
Hmm.
he was very happy staying alone.
Ah.
Then in the second stage, they put him along with the others in, like 3 or 4 of them had to share one cell, and he
Hmm.
was very unhappy there because suddenly he came in contact with people and
Hmm.
he was in his own world. I don't know in which level.
Yeah.
So he said, this is also a weakness in me, that when I'm in a crowd, why is it affecting me? So the divine even showed him his weakness.
Hmm. That's right.
And then again they put him in the solitary cell and he was very happy. And he said that I can be in this solitary cell for the next 20 years also and it doesn't affect me.
Yeah. This is
So, and no, I'm just trying to show that the state in which he was,
yes.
and we are so far away from it.
Of
At
course.
least I am.
Of course. But remember one thing. He is an avatar when the divine descends into him. He is an avatar means he has got a human element. In fact, it's very interesting what you're saying because there's a human element and there's a divine element. Okay. Now, when Nirda is telling him, sir, it's very easy for you because you are divine. So Sri Aurobindo says, what nonsense you are talking? You think to say that all my effort at yoga is a sham? It's a hypocrisy. I have really had to work like a human being. Okay? He says that very clearly. He says, otherwise, what's the use of an avatar? He has to show humanity how it has to be done. So, what you are saying is not at all correct. He told Niruddha. Okay. So, that's exactly what you are saying. He also had the experience of going up, coming down, going up, coming down. In fact, the para we are going to read now, that is some of the description that he is going to see. So, as soon as we come to the end of the para, you will see that he is saying that also. Okay. So, self-element force, this timeless and endless beatitude. Now, I read the next sentence. What you said is absolutely correct, Yasmin. But that is exactly what we are going to read. There is too, constant to his experience, this universe in measurable space and time. In other words, he is there in the self, but he is also constantly aware of the physical world. Okay? There is too constant also in his experience this universe in measurable space and time. Some kind of perhaps of boundless finite, and it is all and in it all is transient, limited, fragmentary, plural, ignorant, exposed to disharmony and suffering. So very interesting what he's saying. I am stationed on the mountain top and I am absolutely in a static condition. There's no movement in my mind. When I am looking below at the valley, which is the physical world, and which is my own body, my life is there in the physical world. What is its nature? It is transient. In other words, there is movement there all the time. There is no static condition in the physical world. It is also limited. All forms are there. He himself is the formless. So it is limited, but also fragmentary. Plurality. We go on saying now one and the multiplicity. So fragmentary, multiple. Plural, exactly. You see? Fragmentary, plural, and it is full of ignorance. There is no knowledge there in the world. You are in the consciousness of knowledge. You are looking down in the valley and seeing that there is no ignorance. Everybody is moving like a machine. Machine is not conscious. There is no knowledge there at all. Exposed to disharmony and suffering. Because it is fragmentary, there is also quarrels. One person will have another, even animals quarrel, okay? Even even human beings quarrel, lower down animals quarrel, even lower down in your body, the cells are there, na? There is the white blood cells. and the others which eat up the others. So even there, even at a physical level, this fragmentation is there. So interesting. When you are infected, your white blood corpuscles start destroying the others. No? So there is a disharmony even there. At the mental level, at the vital level, even at the physical level, it is there. Okay? So, so that's what he is describing. The description is so graphic. Yeah? Look at the words. Each word is important. Transient. There is movement. There is limitation. Stones, trees, all limited forms. Fragmentary, all separate. Fragmented, okay? Plural, multiplicity. Ignorance, no knowledge at all. Exposed to disharmony, quarreling, okay? And suffering. When you are quarreling with others, naturally suffering will also come. Okay? Seek, but there is also seeking. There is a seeking vaguely for some unrealized yet inherent harmony of now the opposites. Oneness. Okay? Unconscious or half conscious, or even when most conscious. Unconscious, matter. Half conscious, animals. Even when most conscious, human beings or even yogis, okay, still tied to the original ignorance and inconscience. So what you are seeing in the physical world, however awakened you are seeing, but yet there is limitation, there is ignorance also. So he is not always in a trance of peace and bliss. Trance means you are not aware of the physical world. Okay? He is not always in a trance of peace and bliss. Because if he is in a trance of peace and bliss, he does not see the physical world. But he is not always in a trance. And even if it were, it would be no solution. Why? Because the physical world with its imperfection continues forever. So how is he solving the problem of the world? Sri Aurobindo is constantly interested in solving the problem of in society, in the world, not only the individual. If he is in a trance of peace and bliss, he is solving the individual problem. But Sri Aurobindo is interested in solving the problem in the physical level. Okay, society, mankind. Okay. So even if he were no solution, for he knows that this would still be going on outside him in the physical world, the quarreling, the disharmony, the ignorance will continue suffering. And yet within some larger self of him, as if it were forever. Okay. For he knows that this would still be going on outside him, and yet within some larger self of him, as if forever. In other words, he's saying something very interesting here. He's saying that even within yourself, you see that there are two levels. Even within yourself, not only in the physical world, but even within yourself, you see that there is a conscious part, and there is below. If you look into yourself, you will see that there is also an inconscient part. There is a subconscious and the inconscient. If you remember the God's Labor poem, he is struggling to clear the inconscient. But when is he doing that? He is doing that in the physical world or in himself? He is doing that in himself. And if he does that in himself, it paves the way for the conquest of it in the physical world. Okay? This is something interesting because he represents the universe. So if he conquers it within himself, it now becomes available to everybody else. Okay? This is true at every level if you think about it carefully. One man discovers the mobile. Now it becomes the common property of everybody. So if Sri Aurobindo is conquering the inconscient within himself, it now becomes, it's a path for everybody to benefit. Okay? This is the principle that he says. He says, once I have built, he says in a letter, once I have built the path, it will become much easier for the others. Okay? The higher spiritual planes of consciousness have not been explored. They have to be explored and the path made. Once the path is made, it becomes easier for the others to go. Okay? So that's what he's saying. This last word, the phrase, very interesting. He says that it will still be going on outside him. That means in the physical world, there is disharmony and suffering. And yet, within some larger self of him, also as if forever. So it is there at the universal level, outside him. It is also there, universal inside him also. Some larger self, infinity within himself. So he can solve the problem of the world by solving the problem within himself. Okay? At times, these two states of his spirit seem to exist for him alternately. That's what we are saying. Once he is in the higher consciousness, once he is in the lower consciousness. When in the lower consciousness, you remember the experience, but it's not. It's like the ashes of the experience, not the fire. You just remember the glowing. If you want to use an image, there is a fire, and all the fire is the charcoal is burning, and there is a fire. But when the fire goes out, the coals are burning. That's what you experience. When you come down, you remember the experience, but it's not the fire anymore. Okay, so that's what it's always saying. I come back to it. At times, these two states of his spirit seem to exist for him alternately, according to his state of consciousness. Okay? At others, they are there as two parts of his being, disparate and yet to be reconciled. This is normally the experience of the yogis, and that's the philosophy of the Sankhya philosophy. That Purusha and Prakriti are eternally separate, but they are there together. At others, they are there as two parts of his being, disparate and to be reconciled. Two halves, an upper and a lower, or an inner and an outer half of his existence. The Sankhya philosophy stops there. He says that's the nature of the world. There is Purusha and there is Prakriti, and they are eternally separate. So that's the reason why you want to go to Purusha, you have to give up Prakriti. You have to give up the physical world. Okay? Now, he finds soon that this separation in his consciousness has an immense liberating power. So, liberation, when you are stationed in the higher consciousness, you are not subject to the limitations of the physical world. You are not subject to it. Okay? So, that's a liberation. We don't feel the liberation because we don't know what liberation is. We feel that I am free and I can do what I want, but that's absolutely a false impression that we have because of the ego. Now, Siddhartha is saying, for by it, he is no longer bound to the ignorance, the inconscience. It no longer appears to him the very nature of himself and things, but an illusion which can be overcome, or at least a temporary wrong self-experience. The wrong self-experience is, I think that I am my body, mind, life, and I can do what I want. A sense of free will is there, but that is absolutely wrong. Maya. So, this is what we realize. It is tempting to regard it as only a contradiction of the divine. In other words, you feel that that's the ultimate truth. Okay? That's a Sankhya philosophy. A contradiction of the divine. Tempting to regard it. You feel that it's the final solution. Look at the words carefully, you will see that. It is tempting to regard it as only a contradiction of the divine. That's a truth. That's how the divine is contradicting himself. An incomprehensible mystery play. Note the word mask. It's not M-A-S-K. It is M-A-S-Q-U-E. And that is, he is referring to some plays, even in our Kathakali, you put on a mask and paint your face heavily. Okay, so that is, and in other places in Japan mostly, it used to be there. Kabuki, they used to call it. Okay, they put on a mask and then do the action, the drama. So you don't see the actual person. So this is what you seem to see the physical world as. Okay, it's a mask, but behind that mask is the real thing. M-A-S-Q-U-E. If you want the definition of mask, it's a play, it's a drama enacted with masks on the face of the actors. Or a travesty. A travesty means a charade, okay? A comedy, burlesque comedy, mockery, making fun of something. The world seems to be mocking the real presence behind itself. The physical forms are all a mockery. It's not the truth at all, okay, of the infinite. And so it irresistibly seems to experience at times. At some times you feel that Purusha and Prakriti are separate, and the one is full of falsehood, limitation, disharmony, and the other is full of peace and calm. That's why the ascetic is justified in his own way of leaving the physical world and going on. So Srimati is using the word tempting to think in that way. On one side, the luminous verity of Brahman, verity, the truth, the luminous verity of Brahman, and on the other, a dark illusion of Maya. Most people find this so satisfying because you are liberated that you end there. But Sri Aurobindo yoga starts with that experience because he wants to solve the problem for mankind, not for the individual. But something in him will not allow him to cut existence thus permanently into two. He is speaking of himself, okay, in a very guarded manner. Something in him, he could have very well said, but something in me would not allow me to cut existence thus permanently into two. And looking more closely, I would discover that this half light or darkness too is eternal. It is a Brahman who is here with this face of Maya. So, he is so keen on solving the problem of the division between Purusha and Prakriti, between spirit and matter, that he sees that, oh, even behind matter there is a divine presence. That's what Sri Aurobindo is saying. Okay? Not everybody will say that. They are very satisfied with the peace that they have achieved. That's why Sri Aurobindo says, my yoga begins where the others end. Because he wants the peace and calm of the higher hemisphere to come down into the lower hemisphere and become permanent. And that is possible in the next stage of evolution. Okay? So, 8:26. We have 10 minutes. And actually maybe 9 minutes or so. So we read one more para. Okay? So, Sri Aurobindo has included different aspects. Sometimes you are only in the self, sometimes you are in the physical world, sometimes you both are there together. Okay? And sometimes they are both, when they are both together, you see them as opposites. But if you look a little more carefully, you will see that they are really not opposites. But behind the physical world's imperfection, there is a perfect divine presence. That's what he's saying. All the four cases he has given you here in the para. Now we can read the next one. This is the beginning of a growing spiritual experience.
Yeah, shall I read?
Yes, do that. Do that.
This is the beginning of a growing spiritual experience which reveals to him more and more that what seemed to him dark, incomprehensible Maya was all the time no other than the consciousness presence of the eternal, timeless and illimitable beyond the universe, but spread out here under a mask of bright and dark opposites for the miracle of the slow manifestation of the divine in mind and life and matter. All the timeless presses towards the play in time. All in time turns upon and around the timeless spirit. If the separate experience was liberative, this unitive experience is dynamic and effective. For he now not only feels himself to be in his soul substance part of the eternal, in his essential self and spirit entirely one with the eternal, but in his active nature an instrumentation of its omniscient and omnipotent conscious presence. However bounded and relative its present play in him, he can open to a greater and greater consciousness and power of it. And to that expansion, there seems to be no assignable limit. A level spiritual and supramental of that consciousness presence seems even to reveal itself above him and learn to enter into contact where there are not these trammels and limits, and its powers too are pressing upon the play in time with the promise of a greater descent and a less disguised or no longer disguised manifestation of the eternal. The once conflicting but now biune duality of Brahman Maya stands revealed to him as the first great dynamic aspect of the self of all selves, the master of existence, the lord of the world sacrifice and of his sacrifice.
This whole para, he is describing his own yoga when he realized that the divine is there above, no doubt. But the divine is also there in the physical world, hiding behind the seeming opposite of himself. This is what he's saying. The others don't necessarily see that because they're so satisfied only with the peace and calm and the liberation. So, Surendra is saying, that's what he's saying, slowly, slowly, you start realizing that the physical world is also not really anti-divine. It is also divine, but hiding behind the anti-divine aspect of the physical world. That's what he's saying. Let's quickly read. I think we'll be able to finish it. It's simple. This is the beginning. The beginning. So see, for him it's a beginning. For the others it's the end. Okay. The experience of the nirvana, experience of the self. Okay. Is experience of Brahman if you want. Atman also if you want. This is the beginning of a growing spiritual experience. Okay. Spiritual experience is not static. The others are taking it as static, but for Surendra it is growing. Growing spiritual experience which reveals to him more and more that what seemed to him dark, incomprehensible Maya was all the time no other than the consciousness puissance of the eternal. Consciousness puissance, Chit Shakti. Okay? Consciousness and power. Consciousness. Purusha, Prakriti together of the eternal. Timeless and illimitable beyond the universe. Because the universe is time and limited. Whereas the higher level, even level 2, okay, the spiritual plane of consciousness is timeless and illimitable, infinite. Beyond the universe, but spread out here under a mask of bright and dark opposites. Okay, so it is spread out. Okay, it is not only located up, but it comes down also into the physical world. But up it is a bright, and down it is a dark opposite of the miracle of the slow manifestation of the divine in mind, life, and matter. In the darkness, there is an evolution. In the higher hemisphere, there is no evolution. It is static. Okay, so he is seeing that. Now he sees that there is a movement, there is transience, but there is also a progression towards the higher. That's what he is saying very clearly. Slow manifestation of the divine where? The divine is expressing himself where? Mind, life and matter. He is going in the opposite direction, mind, life and matter. But if you want to speak of evolution, it starts from matter, reveals life and reveals mind. All the timeless is level 2. Okay? The spiritual plane of consciousness presses towards the play in time. Know the word play, movement in time. All the timeless static condition presses towards the play in time. All in time turns upon and around the timeless spirit. Everything in time in the physical world is all playing around the timeless spirit. It is there also but hiding. If the separate experience was liberative, okay, this unitive experience is dynamic and effective. What does it mean? In the liberation, you have no power over the physical body. Body, mind, life, you have nothing. You are just watching it and you are free. I am free from that prison. It is a horrible experience. I am free. I am very happy. This unitive experience, the physical world is also divine. The divine presence is there before. So now what does it give you extra? It is dynamic and effective. Effective for what? Effective for changing your mind, changing your vital and changing even your body, which is not written fully, but the body also became totally different. Okay? He was a dark person, he became absolutely a fair and golden color. And also, in the record of yoga, there are very interesting details. He did not have the need of brushing his teeth even. Okay, he did not have the need to put oil in his hair. Okay, the hair became oily by itself. These are very interesting details which are there in the record of yoga. Okay, and the toenails started changing shape and becoming more shapely. All this he reveals in the record of yoga. So, this is what the dynamic, I am explaining dynamic and effective. It changes. It is not static condition. It's a condition where you have power. Okay? For he now not only feels himself to be in his soul substance, part of the eternal. Soul substance, the word is interesting. It tells you very clearly that the soul also is substance. Okay, very subtle substance. Part of the eternal, in his essential self and spirit, entirely one with the eternal. Now that's a very interesting sentence. Let's look carefully. For now he not only feels himself to be in his soul substance part of the eternal. When you are in the lower consciousness, your soul substance is part of the eternal. Part of the eternal means you experience your psychic being as a part of the, that means it's the individual. Okay? If you are a part, you are not the whole, you are the individual. In his essential self and spirit, entirely one with the eternal. That's above. So, in other words, if you want to reinterpret this sentence, in your higher part of the consciousness, you are absolutely one with the divine. One in every way. But in the lower part, you see that you are a part of the divine. You are the individual divine. You are the infinite divine above and you are the individual divine below. The individual divine is what is in our Indian philosophy we call the Jivatma. Okay? The individual divine. You are conscious of your individuality. That individuality is not the ego. There can be an individuality which is infinite and eternal. You experience infinity and eternity, but somebody is experiencing that infinity and eternity. Who is that? That's a true individual. Keep in mind again that very nice image, according to me, of the grain of salt and the salt dissolving in the ocean and becoming saltiness everywhere. The saltiness is the individuality. Okay? Because it's not sweetness, it is saltiness. So I am just explaining to you characteristics. Okay? So that is what Siddha is saying. So above he is part of the divine, below he is part of the divine. Sorry, above he is the divine, and in below he is part of the divine. Individuality. But in his active nature, an instrumentation of its omniscient and omnipotent. Okay? So what is the instrumentation? Active nature instrumentation, body, mind, life. There he is an instrumentation of the omniscient and omnipotent consciousness to essence. Your body, mind, life also is participating and it is become an instrument of the divine. This is a very interesting thing. Okay, you become, the divine needs an instrument to work in the physical world. He does not work directly in the physical world. This is very interesting because it's got very practical importance. I'll just very briefly mention, we have gone beyond the time, but I'll take 2 minutes more, okay? So, one is that story of the man who is drowning in the sea, okay? So, the ship comes and says, we'll save you, come aboard, you are drowning, we'll save you. He said, no, God is going to come and save me. Okay, I've told this story many times. So, then another ship also comes, he says, no, I don't need, God is going to come and save me, I don't need your ship, go away. Finally, he doesn't take help from any ship, he drowns. He goes to God and says, I had depended on you and you didn't come to me. Why didn't you come to me? So the God tells him, I sent 4 ships to you. So this story illustrates the point that the divine works in the physical world using the laws of the physical world. He doesn't do miracles. He works through the laws of the physical world. He doesn't do miracles. Okay? So this is what is it. When there was a problem in the ashram, okay, that Peter Lees wrote a very bad book about Sri Aurobindo. According to me, it's a bad book. Okay, according to many others also. Some of the ashramites said, oh, no, we don't need to take any action. Sri Aurobindo will take care of it himself. Now, this is a very obviously not the right argument because the divine needs an instrument. And you have to become an instrument of the divine in the physical world. The divine will not act directly. Okay, just like the manager or the chief executive of an officer does not start determining things at the factory floor. That is left to the assistant managers and the supervisors. They take action. So this is what Sridhar is saying. Okay, instrumentation. Okay? Instrumentation of the so. However bounded and limited in its play, where's it gone? Yeah. That's right. So, a level spiritual and supermental of that consciousness presence seems even to reveal itself above him and lean and lean to enter into contact where there are not these trammels and limits. In other words, the supermind is pressing down, putting pressure on the physical world for change. And Sri Aurobindo not only took advantage of the pressing down, but he actually pulled it down. Mother and Sri Aurobindo did that work, okay? It's not only leaning, but they actually pulled it down to enter into contact where there are not these trammels and limits. Its powers too are pressing upon the play in time with the promise of a greater descent. That greater descent took place, and a less disguised or no longer disguised manifestation of the eternal. The once conflicting but now biune duality of Brahman Maya stands revealed to him as the first great dynamic aspect of the self, of all selves, the master of existence, the lord of the world sacrifice and the sacrifice. In other words, he is telling you that when you go to the third level, you have the power, dynamic and effective in the physical world. And there's another thing he is also mentioning here. You see the lord of the world sacrifice. In other words, level 2, you see only the impersonal aspect of the divine. All those who have experienced level 2, without experiencing level 3, they say that there is no God. There is only the impersonal aspect of the divine. Power is there, consciousness is there, freedom is there, infinity is there, peace is there. There may even be joy, but nobody is there. Now, Sri Aurobindo is telling you at the third level, the Lord of the sacrifice. So he is at the supramental level, the divine is individual as well as universal. That's what it is. So I have gone 5 minutes, 6 minutes beyond the time. I'm sorry for that, but it's a very interesting paragraph we have seen. Okay, so next time on another line of approach. So there are so many experiences Sri Aurobindo is talking about. So we'll see what he's saying next. Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay. Somebody has to note down the. Yeah. I can also do that.
Bonjour, Rangada.
Bonjour.
Thank you, Ranganath.
Okay, everybody.
Merci.